Do you like kale? How do you normally cook kale? What is your favorite kale recipe? And for this episode of the Whole Foods Plant Strong Show, I've invited 5 guests to share and discuss 8 different ways we can enjoy kale. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Chan, your host of this Whole Foods Plant Strong Show, where I explore and discuss tips and ideas to make a health-promoting Whole Foods Plant Strong eating habit possible and enjoyable. This episode of the Whole Foods Plant Strong Show is supported by Naturally Nurtured Australia, or NNA in short. NNA is a regenerative farming grown produce brand from Australia that is now available in Singapore. For more information about NNA's produce, where to find them in Singapore, visit their website, link in the description below. A week before the recording of this show, I delivered some red kale together with other vegetables and fruits from NNA to my 5 guests. And I challenged them to cook up a dish that they would enjoy using the red kale. And these were some of the very interesting red kale dishes that they cooked up. Hello everyone, welcome to the Whole Foods Plant Strong Show. I hope you are enjoying the vegetables and fruits from Naturally Nurtured Australia that I sent to you last week. Especially the red kale that I had challenged you to use to cook up an interesting dish. Was this the first time that you have used red kale to cook anything? Or maybe even the first time that you have tried red kale at all? Have you all have experienced the red kale?
No.
First time. So let us start sharing what we collectively came up with in terms of the different ways to enjoy kale. Let's start with Rain. Rain, you use your red kale to make a kale pesto. Interesting.
Actually, this is basically a no-cook recipe and it's done very easily. All you need to do is get down the ingredients, the walnuts, the garlic, the kale, the basil, the olive oil, throw them inside the blender and then bang, it's ready. So basically, I created a pesto using not just basil but added kale as well. It's actually more flavorful in a way.
Next, we have Tabitha with a kale and cauliflower soup.
So what I did was I actually cut out all the leaves of the kale. I floored and roasted the cauliflower. And then I made a veggie stock. Throw in the cauliflower as well as the kale. And then you just need to boil it. At the end, you just need to use a stick blender to just puree everything up. The end product is a bit more creamy, but you don't use any cream at all. So I think the cauliflower sort of give that kind of like thickness to the soup. It was quite nice. It was very enjoyable. I let my mom try it and then she was quite surprised.
So have you tried it before? Would you be keen to try making this yourself at home?
This is Ray. I'm actually very interested after hearing Tabitha saying that it's creamy because I've been trying to do a creamy soup but then not with milk. So yeah, I think this is something that I'll be trying.
I will encourage all of you to try this. This is a wonderful way to put a lot of different vegetables into a single dish. Next, Shirley, you use the red kale for quinoa fried rice. Interesting.
It's actually a very simple fried rice because it's a busy weeknight dinner. So I actually have pre-cooked quinoa in the fridge. So I just open up a can of chickpeas, then saute the garlic with some olive oil, and then throw in the red kale, stir for a while, add in my chickpeas, and just a bit of salt and pepper. Stir fry. That's it. It was done in less than 15 minutes. I will just add my already roasted chopped almond, walnut, sunflower seed, and the whole plate was so nutty. It was very nice.
Yeah, I can imagine it's very yummy.
Yeah, it was very sweet. Kale was sweet. I didn't add much seasoning.
Interesting.
Great. You made a kale omelette.
I started with using a high-speed food processor to chop up the leaves after removing the stems. Check that it's the size that I wanted, not too small because I didn't want it to be mushy after cooking. I fried it a little to soften it before adding the egg with added oatmeal and some seasoning. Surprisingly, the kale didn't have the usual slight bitter taste at all, and it had a very nice crunch to it. It was like a seaweed in an omelette. And I felt that it was a really nice combination that was so easy to cook. And I didn't even need much seasoning at all.
Oh, the oatmeal is very interesting.
Yeah, also it adds a bit more taste to the egg. Instead of just being eggy, there is a milky, slightly nutty taste to it.
So are you surprised by how this red kale omelette turned out when you were apprehensive that your family may not like the taste of kale?
Very surprised because my people at home don't really like kale. So when I placed the plate on the dinner table, the husband was still looking at it. He was expecting it to be all mushy, but then when we bite into it, it was actually a very nice crunch. So it was very nice combination.
Whilst for me, when Ray said that she was going to do a kale omelette, I decided to do something similar. Instead of eggs, I used tofu to do a tofu scramble. I fry up Swiss brown mushroom and then use my hand to break the tofu, add in the nutritional yeast and the turmeric, mix it well, mash it, become like a scramble. And after that, add the kale and with still a bit of water in the wok, just cover it for a few minutes and then season according to taste, salt and pepper, and a bit of nutritional yeast. I think the secret ingredient for a good tofu scramble are really the turmeric powder as well as nutritional yeast. It really add the cheesy, milky taste to it. Jin Song, you have young kids. Is that why you decided to make kale chips with the red kale that I sent to you?
No, I cannot do anything else. When you guys say, "Wow, this one's simple, that one's simple," I think mine is the simplest. It's simple in a way that actually there's not much to be done. You only need the kale and the oven. The straining is quite important. After straining, we really need to pat it really dry, cut out the leafy part. The evenness of the cuts will actually ensure even crisping. Then you add in the olive oil. Once again, consistency and evenness is very important. You basically massage the kale in such a way to even out the oil. I use 180 in my oven for 3 minutes. Then I toss and bake for another 2 minutes. And my daughters are 11 months and one turning 4. They really enjoy it.
And do you find it any different from green kale chips now that you are using red kale for the first time to make kale chips?
So red kale is really very interesting. Taste profile wise, kale usually has this typical bitter taste to it. Red kale really doesn't have it. It's even more enjoyable. And I feel there's a bit more texture to it. It seems to be a little thicker. So it's more enjoyable actually.
Lastly, Rain, Shirley, and I also did some kale stir fry and kale salads. Rain, you want to share with us your inspiration for this kale stir fry?
Yeah, so I had this dish initially a few years ago at my friend's house. Her mom, who's staying in Brazil, cooked this for us. And I was very surprised because the kale wasn't bitter and it was very, very tender. So I asked her how does she cook it. I think number one is she actually cut it very finely. Then number two, the garlic first. After that, she removed the garlic using the oil from there and gently stir the kale, adding a bit of salt and a bit of mushroom powder. And it tastes really fantastic. Yeah.
Is it something like a fried basil, the texture, when it's very, very fine?
No, actually, it's still crunchier. Before that, I used to just mince my garlic, do it the Chinese way, then cut the kale big pieces and fry it, kind of thing. This one is more tender than that because it's sliced so finely, but it's not soft. It still has a bit of crunch. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So you use a red kale to do this Brazilian kale stir fry for the first time. How did it compare with your green kale Brazilian stir fry?
I think in terms of the texture, it's a bit more crunchy than before. Yeah.
Shirley, you did your kale salad. It's a steamed salad, right?
Oh yes, I steamed up the red kale, and then this was very fast. From the fridge, I took out the cauliflower, carrot, and cabbage, and then I just mixed them together. It was a very quick dinner.
For me, I did a kale salad too. I did a warm salad, but I'm showing you the pictures from my restaurant, from the bentos that I used to offer. That's Jin Song. Jin Song on my last day of operations at my restaurant, saying goodbye after 5 years. That was the very last day before we closed. How many of you have been to my restaurant before? Many of you, except I think Rain. Rain have not been to my restaurant before. So you know that I used to serve a variety of dishes and let people make their own bento. Most of them, many of them are plant strong. You see the one in circle? Right, that's one of a very popular item, warm kale salad. Very simply done. I just steam it for a couple of minutes, toss it with some balsamic vinegar and extra virgin olive oil, sprinkle roasted almonds and some seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and it was very, very well received, well loved, and very simple. Even after I closed the restaurant, I continued to make this simple kale salad at home.
So both you and Shirley's salads for the kale, they're both cooked.
Yes, personal preference. Do you all normally do your kale using raw kale?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use raw kale as well. Red kale is more rounded, the taste. I think a lot of people don't like the raw taste in green kale. They want it cooked.
I hope that was fun and useful. In this last segment, I want to ask all of you to share your views on this statement that I have always been advocating and telling anyone and everyone who is willing to listen, which is that the food choices that we make at every single meal, that is choosing whole foods, getting plants stronger at every single meal, can be powerful in combating, preventing many chronic diseases. It is what food as medicine is. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I certainly agree with you. Ever since we started to add more vegetables into our daily meals, it's not as bad as we thought it would be.
For food as medicine, I believe in it very, very strongly because the flip side is actually if we don't eat food as medicine, we will end up eating medicine as food, you see. And of course, it is a journey. It's not something that we can just switch and be used to also. It's really a journey. Although at 36 years old, but I just realized that I got high cholesterol. Just nice that this show is running right now. We can actually inspire a community to come together to share plant-strong recipes to encourage each other that it's possible.
And that's the purpose of this show as well. I want to encourage people to experiment, explore, right, and grow to learn to love whole foods, plant-strong food, loving food that will love them back. Food is medicine. Start with choosing whole foods, getting plants stronger.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you, Dr. Chan. Yeah, after getting to know you, I really believe this is a lifestyle. It is not a diet. And when you first encouraged me to experiment, to explore the vegetables that I've never tried before, then I start to experiment with different vegetables. And there are so many options out there that I never run out of ideas of vegetables.
Yeah, and many of my patients, many of my students, when I run classes, many of them are surprised when I nudge them, encourage them to explore more variety of vegetables, more ways of preparing them. Many of them began to see vegetables in a very different light.
Yeah, actually, I think this is quite true for myself because I used to just eat whatever that there was out there for convenience. So because you, Dr. Chan, I got introduced to this whole plant stronger diet. I'm still on this journey. I'm pretty new to it, I would say. But in a very short period of time whereby I have changed my diet habits, even my family has done quite a fair bit of change as well. And actually, it comes to a point whereby when you go out and eat, you actually feel a bit uncomfortable when you don't get enough vegetables during that certain meal. Yeah, and then when you look around here, like, oh no, even like the whole coffee shop can have no vegetables. Yeah, and you're like, oh no, I missed it, because it's like you just feel very uncomfortable. You don't have that crunch, you don't have satisfaction. And it's very good that I've met you guys because then I realized that kale actually can be done in many, many other ways and it's doable. And especially, I like it when the method is very, very fast.
And Tabitha, you may not realize how pleased, how happy I am to hear what you shared just now. Because when people first start this journey, they will be saying to me, Doctor, I'm not used to having vegetables so often. And after a few months, they changed to saying to me, Doctor, I'm not used to not having vegetables anymore.
I definitely agree on the whole food plant stronger diet. I've seen how it actually helps to improve health and it can actually be so enjoyable. Yeah.
So I want to encourage everybody, which is why I use the word get plant stronger. All of us have different food preferences. The 6 of us here, some of us are 100% plant-based. Some of us will never consider giving up meat. But regardless of where we are in this spectrum of how much meat that we have in our diets, we can all do well in terms of being able to better prevent and combat chronic diseases by getting plant stronger. Even when you are having a beef steak, get plant stronger. Even when you are having a porridge, get plant stronger. Even if you are vegetarian or vegan, get plant stronger. That is one simple decision that we can all do well. I hope all of you found this kale recipe ideas useful and would inspire you to go and explore, experiment, and make more interesting vegetable dishes, not just with kale, but also with all the different types of vegetables. Because that is the reason why I started this show, to engage and encourage people like you to get creative, to get inspired with vegetable dishes that will make a health-promoting, whole foods, plant-strong eating habit not just possible, but also enjoyable. Learning to love foods that will love us back.